When I was a kid, I thought love looked like birthday gifts and hugs. It took me 20 years to realize sometimes love looks like hunger, the kind that hides behind a smile. My name's Noah Reed. I'm 28 now, but this story takes me back to when I was 10, a scrawny kid with a hand me down backpack and a mom who could make a dollar stretch like magic. We didn't have much, but she made it feel like we did. She'd say, "As long as you eat, baby, I'm full." I believed her. We lived in a tiny apartment above a laundromat, the kind where the walls shook every time someone's spin cycle started. Mom worked double shifts at the diner down the street. I'd sit by the window doing homework, watching her walk home under the same broken streetlight every night. Even exhausted, she'd come through the door smiling. "Did my boy eat?" she'd ask, always the same question. One night, after another long shift, she made dinner: a few slices of bread, some soup that looked more like flavored water than a meal. She pushed the bowl toward me and said, "Eat up, honey." "I'm not hungry." I didn't think twice. I ate. She watched, sipping from her cup like it was enough. Later that night, I went to grab my backpack for school. Her purse had fallen on the floor beside it. When I picked it up, something inside rattled. I looked and froze. Inside, wrapped in napkins, were the bread crust I hadn't finished, and half the soup I'd left behind, sealed in a tiny container. She hadn't eaten at all. That night, I lay awake, listening to the hum of the laundromat below and the sound of her quiet breathing in the next room. I wanted to wake her, to tell her I knew, but I didn't, because even at 10, I understood something. She wasn't hungry for food. She was hungry for me to have more than she ever did. After that night, I started paying attention, really paying attention. How she'd always say she already ate at work. How she'd scrape the last bits of my plate into a napkin when she thought I wasn't looking. How the shoes she wore to work had holes so deep you could see her socks when it rained. I tried to help in the small, clumsy ways a 10-year-old could. I'd pretend I wasn't hungry, push my plate toward her, say, "I'm full." She'd smile, that same soft, tired smile, and say, "Good." Then I'll just finish it so it doesn't go to waste. I'd nod, pretending I didn't notice the relief in her eyes. Sometimes I'd hear her crying quietly in the bathroom late at night. Not the kind of sobbing that wants attention, the kind that tries not to wake anyone, the kind that sounds like guilt for not being able to give enough. Years passed and life didn't get easier, but she made sure it never felt worse. She worked through fevers, storms, heartbreak, everything. She missed birthdays, school plays, holidays, always saying, "I'll make it up to you." And somehow, she always did. By the time I turned 16, I got my first job at a grocery store. She told me to save the money, that I'd need it for college, but I didn't. The first paycheck I got, I took her to the same diner she worked at for years. Same corner booth, same cheap menu. When the waiter came, I ordered the biggest meal they had for her. She laughed. "Noah, this is too much food." I smiled. "Then you can save some for later." For the first time in my life, I saw her eat until she was full, really full. And for a moment, she didn't look tired. She looked peaceful. That night, walking home, she slipped her arm through mine and said, "You're growing up too fast. You know that?" I looked at her and said, "Only because you didn't get the chance to." A few months later, I came home early from school. Mom wasn't there yet, but her purse was sitting on the kitchen chair, the same worn out brown one she'd carried for as long as I could remember. Something about it caught my eye. It looked heavier than usual. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it, half expecting to find the usual: her wallet, keys, maybe some receipts. But what I found instead made my throat tighten. Wrapped in napkins were bits of leftover food: half a sandwich, a few fries, and a small piece of cake. They were cold, old, but carefully packed, like they mattered. And tucked beside them was a note, folded neatly, just in case he's still hungry after school. That was the moment it hit me. Mom hadn't been skipping meals because she wasn't hungry. She'd been skipping them so I could eat. I sank into the chair, holding that stupid half sandwich like it was made of gold. Because to her, it was. It was love disguised as leftovers. When she got home, she saw me sitting there, the note in my hand. Her face froze, caught between guilt and fear. "I told you not to go through my things," she whispered. I didn't say anything. I just stood up, walked over, and hugged her so tight she couldn't move. She tried to joke her way out of it. "Noah, you'll crush me." But her voice cracked halfway through. I looked her in the eye and said, "Mom, you don't have to hide food anymore." She smiled through tears and said quietly, "It's a hard habit to break when you've spent years being hungry." And right then, I made her a promise that one day she'd eat first, always. The next morning, I woke up early, earlier than she did. For the first time in my life, I made breakfast. Not toast and jam, but a full meal: eggs, pancakes, the good coffee she always saved for guests. When she came into the kitchen, her hair tied up in that messy bun she always wore to work, she froze. "What's all this?" she asked, half smiling. I just pointed to the chair and said, "It's your turn to eat first." She laughed, that soft, shy laugh she used when she didn't know how to react. Then she sat down, slowly, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to. I watched her take the first bite. Her eyes watered, not because of the food, but because she finally didn't have to pretend. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about everything she'd done: the skipped meals, the double shifts, the nights she stayed awake, stitching torn uniforms and pretending she wasn't tired. All those years, I thought we were just poor. But now I realized we were rich in the ways that actually mattered. Years later, when I started my first job, I framed that little note I'd found in her purse, just in case he's still hungry after school. It hangs above my desk even now, a reminder that the people who feed us love aren't always the ones eating beside us. Sometimes they're the ones watching quietly from across the table, pretending they're full, just so we never feel empty.